8,000 prisoners. 111 killed in 20 minutes. And nobody went to prison for it. Carandiru. It was built to hold 500 people. At its worst, it held over 8,000. Inmates ran their own courts, their own economy, their own justice system inside the walls. And on the afternoon of October 2nd, 1992, the Brazilian military police walked in and killed 111 prisoners in 20 minutes. Not a single officer served a day in prison for it. Carandiru Penitentiary opened in São Paulo, Brazil in 1956 with a design capacity of 500 inmates. By the time of the massacre, it held over 7,257 men in a crumbling complex of pavilions that had not been maintained in decades. It was the largest prison in Latin America. Inside Carandiru, the Brazilian state had effectively ceased to function. There were 3 guards assigned to cell Block 8 alone for 1,600 inmates. Rival drug gangs controlled entire pavilions. Inmates operated their own internal economy, traded contraband freely, held their own trials for rule violations, and carried out their own punishments. The prison had its own black market, its own hierarchy, and its own code of law that had nothing to do with the Brazilian government. Dr. Drauzio Varela, a physician who spent years working inside Carandiru voluntarily to provide medical care, later documented that despite the chaos, the inmates had established a functional system of internal order that kept open warfare at a minimum. The real danger, he wrote, came not from the prisoners, but from the conditions the state had created and abandoned. On the morning of October 2nd, 1992, a fight broke out between 2 prisoners in cell Block 9 over exercise space. One inmate was struck in the head with a wooden club and hospitalized. In response, prisoners broke into the exercise yard and a riot spread through the block. By 2 p.m., the prisoners controlled the area. No hostages were taken. No escape attempts were made. Prison officials contacted Colonel Uberraton Guimarães, commander of the Metropolitan São Paulo Police. He called for reinforcements. By 3 p.m., he had approximately 340 military police officers outside the prison. He ordered them in. What followed was documented in forensic detail by Amnesty International investigators who entered the prison within days of the massacre. Forensic evidence presented at trial confirmed that at least 90% of the prisoners who died were shot in the head or neck. Many were shot while kneeling or lying down in defensive positions. Hands found on the dead were raised in front of faces or clasped behind heads, the documented posture of men surrendering, not fighting. Between 3,500 and 5,000 bullets were fired. 111 prisoners were killed. 87 more were wounded. Not a single police officer was injured. The aftermath and the impunity. Colonel Guimarães was tried in 2001 and sentenced to 632 years in prison. He appealed. A Brazilian court overturned his conviction in 2006 on mistrial claims, accepting his argument that he was simply following orders. He was found shot dead in his São Paulo apartment later that same year. In 2013 trials, 23 police officers were sentenced to 156 years each, and 25 more were sentenced to 624 years each. In September 2016, the São Paulo State Court of Justice annulled all of those convictions, ruling the massacre was an act of self-defense. None of the convicted officers ever served a single day. Carandiru was demolished in 2002. A youth park was built on the ground where 111 men were killed. The case remains legally unresolved to this day. 8,000 prisoners. A facility built for 500. 111 killed in 20 minutes. 0 officers in prison for it. That is the documented reality of Carandiru, the prison the Brazilian state built, abandoned, and then massacred. If this hit you the way it was meant to, like this video, share it, and subscribe. New cases every single week. And the truth is always darker than what you were told.